ESPN Seth Greenberg with us, 365 Sports, and we're down to the wire. Some conference tournaments about to begin, and of course others with the conference schedule wrapping up this weekend. Seth, let's discuss the Big 12. Do they ever disappoint as far as the roller coaster of who's up and who's down? Kansas is separated for now with a game left. Two games left. Your thoughts about what the Jayhawks are doing right now?
Jayhawks are playing at a high level. I mean, what's happened is I think that, look, the Big 12, you're going to have a blip in growth. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's cumulative effect of the league, and they went through that, and they've gotten through it. Yeah, and I think, that's the key. I mean, Baylor went through a similar situation, and they fought through it, and it kind of attests to basically your culture in a lot of ways. But when you look at Kansas, their starting five is as good as any. And, I'm a big KJ Adams fan. I think, his ability to defend out on the perimeter, his ability to switch, his ability to, get to the offensive glass, be a short and long roller. I think they got the best overall set of wings in college basketball with McCullough, obviously Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson, as opposed to like Baylor, maybe the best set of guards in college basketball. But I think that, in general, Kansas got through that tough time. The one guy that's got to play well for them each and every night is Dwan Harris, though. You take Dwan Harris out, they struggle. And I mean, I take him out, either get him in foul trouble, forget about just scoring, but, get the ball out of his hands, because he is the purest of point guards maybe in the Big 12.
Seth, Baylor had, they had that 0-3 start, and they came all the way back, and then they lost back-to-back games as well to Kansas and Kansas State on the road, where they led at halftime, and then they just looked terrible in the second half. But then Texas in town, and they handled their business after a terrible start. And Scott Drew getting a few other players involved because Keontae George goes down. Your thoughts about what he's been able to maneuver since those two games they lost in Kansas?
Yeah, I think it's just Scott being Scott. I mean, obviously getting Langston a couple of minutes. Del Bonner obviously stepped up the other night and gave him, not only made those free throws down the stretch, but gave him an experience and a poise. Getting JTT back, I think, just changes him defensively. I mean, he's almost a phenomenon to me. His ability to move his feet with everything he's been through, his ability to guard a drag ball screen transition, get back to the front of the rim, communicate, and then even offensively do the things he's done has been incredible. But I've been really, really impressed with Scott's intensity, but his patience. And I think that's the big thing. He's been a little bit more animated with this team. Mm-hmm. Like, he's fighting with this team. It seems like, I don't mean against them, I mean with them. He's standing by their side. And I think they're feeding off of that. I thought the technical yesterday was an example of that.
Yeah, he has been more outward when it comes to that, and has been on the edge of a couple of other technical fouls. And I think last night it seemed like to me he didn't like maybe that there were some things that he didn't like, but also maybe frustration because Oklahoma State, despite being down, they were just dominating the offensive boards.
Yeah, they were kicking their tail on the glass. I mean, and most times coaches get teased because they're frustrated with their team's play. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's an automatic, and it's just you take it out on the official, especially the one closest to you. I mean, you give them 3 and 4 consecutive offensive rebounds, and ball gets shot, and you see everyone falling the flat of the ball instead of cutting some out on the weak side. It's easier to do that than maybe to fuss with a player until you get him in a timeout. So, that's my only concern. I mean, my only concern is obviously Jalen Bridges is not a true four-man. He's got to stick his nose in there. He offensive rebounds, but he's got to stick his nose in there and help him defensive rebound. I think that's really, really important. And the guard's got to continue to come back and help him rebound the ball. But, that's the one thing that, if I look at it, they've got to shore that area up.
They have had some issues, including last night, with getting the ball through pressure. And, of course, pressure is there to create turnovers, but it does seem like they're – the one guy just to take it. Like, obviously, we can go back 2 years when you had the great Davion Mitchell. And Flagler's done a nice job at the point position, but they are struggling a little bit. There's been 2 or 3 games that almost got out of hand at the end because they weren't handling pressure better. Is that just getting back in the gym with practice?
Yeah, probably. This time of the year, you're really working on preparing for your next game. I mentor a bunch of coaches, and I tell them all, I said, I understand preparing for the next game, but this time of the year, you should be understanding, be able to defend on principles and personnel. I think that you've got to work on your team. What are the things that can get you beat? And I think that coaches need to spend more time on their own team this time of the year than they realize. You can get your team, especially this time of the year, you see the team for a second time a lot of times. So you have a little bit of a feel. You've guarded about every situation humanly possible. You can work on your team and the intricacies of trying to kind of steal baskets. But I really believe this time of the year, coaches need to be really focused on paying the legitimate amount of attention to their team and not just the next game.
Seth, the Big 12, Oklahoma State is right there on the bubble. West Virginia with a huge win against Iowa State. Seems like they're back in the picture. Can they get really 8 or 9? Is it possible, or do you think that cap is 7 or 8 in the tournament?
I think it's 7 or 8 because they're eating their own.
Yeah.
I just think that, right now, Oklahoma State, they've lost, I think, 5 in a row now. Actually, I think they've lost 5 in a row, maybe even 6 in a row right now. I mean, I'm interested to see, and this is something I post to our game day people for this weekend. The Big 12 is so difficult. You're going to play probably of the 18 games you're going to play 15 that are going to be quad 1 games. So you know what? You're going to have a team like West Virginia or Oklahoma State. You're going to be 5-12, maybe, or 5-10 in quad 1. They've never seen anything like that. How do you evaluate that? Because you've got teams that are really good teams, but still, they're going to have a lot of losses against quad 1. How do you evaluate that against a team that's only maybe like 4-4 against quad 1?
Do you feel like, and we saw the example against the SEC, the Big 12 had a nice day. They pretty much took control of that challenge. Do you think that once the tournament begins, the style of play helps or hurts them in the tournament, and or it's a breath of fresh air of playing somebody else for a change?
I think it's a good balance right there. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air, and I think that teams that have to play against most of the sideline defenses of the Big 12 are going to have a problem. My only concern, people lose their mind, don't at me, it's just an opinion, and I speak from officials. Mm-hmm. We know the Big 12 is the most physical league in college basketball. It's just the way it is. All right? And there are no secrets in league play. And it's officiated differently. I had one official tell me, look, we called every single foul in the league. The best players to be sitting on the bench. And we don't want that to happen. So we're basically officiating advantage, disadvantage. So, I mean, my only concern is because the league is so physical, does that put the league at a disadvantage in terms of how the game's going to be officiated? Because those fouls, and especially in the first and second round, when guys are trying to advance to the next weekend, they're going to call for the letter of the law. Now, I think Baylor and Kansas are two teams that are in a good place with that because they're not as overly physical defensively. They'll keep it sidelines. They'll pressure the ball. Kansas switches more. But I think both of those teams don't foul as much and don't have to redefine a foul like maybe some of the teams in the league do.
Seth, Texas lost on Saturday, had a great start, but then just couldn't do it. Baylor was, of course, in an angry mood after the 2 games they lost to KU and Kansas State. Rodney Terry's done an amazing job considering all of the early season drama. Your thoughts about UT as they move down? They play tomorrow, and then they play also Saturday to try to close it out, and still with an outside shot of a piece of the Big 12 title.
Yeah, that Kansas at home. But that game at TCU with a healthy Mike Miles is not going to be easy. I mean, TCU, talk about a physical team. You talk about a team that plays with speed. You talk about a team that's hard to play against. They're the real deal. There's no doubt about it. So Texas, Rodney's done a great job. They've got a great staff. They've got 6 seniors. They've got a very good basketball team, a mature basketball team that has been able to navigate all the obstacles this season has presented.
Seth, a couple of teams, Blue Bloods. Kentucky seems to be in a nice run. North Carolina needed wins, and they've been able to pick up a couple this week. Your thoughts about the Wildcats and Tar Heels?
Yeah, I think Kentucky's figured it out to some extent. Casey Wallace, the point guard, has been huge. And what people don't understand, where he's really helped him, his ability to defend the basketball. So you take a non-defender out, Xavier Wheeler, you're putting a big physical guard in, and then he can get to the rim and make a shot. I think he's changed him. And then, John Calipari has empowered Jacob Topping, and I think that Oscar's getting healthier. So I think that's been interesting. North Carolina's got a long way to go. Only one win. I would say the better, they got a great opportunity this weekend with Duke, which would give them a second quad one win, and that would be huge for their resume. But I think they still need 2 more wins against the field, is my gut feel.
A couple more things. Seth Greenberg, ESPN College Game Day with us, ESPN College Basketball Analyst. Houston will be a part of the Big 12 next year, which is going to be amazing with what Kelvin Sampson's doing, what he's done, and this year's team right there right now, ranked number 1. Your thoughts about them when they get to the tournament? Is this a year, and they've made that run, of course, we know what happened in Indianapolis with Baylor, but do you feel like this team can be in the Final Four?
It can be. It's one of the teams that can be. I mean, they're an elite defense, an elite rebounding team. They have terrific guard play. The negative, they have 5 starters right now. We're all averaging double figures in American Conference play. The big concern for them is at times they get stuck offensively, but everyone's got a scar. There's no one without a scar in college basketball right now. So, I think they're a fun team to watch. They play so hard. They're so fiercely competitive. They've got terrific guard play. Sasser's playing really at a high level right now. So, they've got as good a shot as any.
Is there a mid-major team in particular that kind of has caught your attention? Obviously, there's Cinderellas that we know that's going to happen. It's part of the tournament. That's why it's so great. But is there a mid-major team that has kind of caught your attention as somebody you think this could be fun to watch?
A mid-major team, I think it'll be interesting, like a Utah State who scores it so effortlessly. Taylor Funk and their ability to score. If they get in, and again, there's no guarantee that they're going to get in, but if they get in, I think they'll be dangerous. Boise State is a team that offensively, defensively is kind of like in the top 25. They're a team that maybe can put some pressure on people. I mean, I don't call them mid-major. St. Mary's, we just saw Gonzaga played St. Mary's. St. Mary's, an experienced team. Aiden Mahaney, a freshman, is a fun kid to watch. They're physical and experienced. Logan Johnson is just a hard-playing left-handed kid that goes right. So I'd say those teams probably are just some teams that maybe jump out at me.
Seth, you guys do an incredible job. We always appreciate your time with us. Thank you very much. We're a day away from March the 1st. That'll be a heck of a fun week. In the next 5 or 6 weeks, thanks for your time.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Seth Greenberg, ESPN College Game Day with 365 Sports.
It has been really nice to have